I've been asked to share this message with small business owners in my area, and I decided I should share it with you, my loyal listeners to Flipping Genius, first. As always, my number one goal, is to help you make more money. And today's message may affect more than just your flipping business. Today's message can help anyone who desires to expand their reach, no matter what the purpose. So please share it with anyone that you believe I can help. If you buy and sell vehicles for a profit, or you want to, you're in the right place. This is the Flipping Genius podcast. Our number one goal is to help our listeners make more money. Every episode, we share information, ideas, and experiences of real-life car flippers. I'm Randy Lee. I'm the host of Flipping Genius. I've flipped cars most of my life. For over a dozen years now, I've been a licensed dealer. I am working to build the best podcast about successfully flipping cars for a consistent profit. Let's get to it, flippers. Hey, after becoming a fan of numerous podcasts, I decided it would be great to begin one myself. So in January of 2020, I started the Flipping Genius podcast. I started recording the podcast about buying and selling cars for a significant profit. And part of the reason I chose car flipping as my subject matter was that it was something that I was familiar with and pretty good at. In fact, at the time, I was already a licensed car dealer in the great state of Alabama for about a decade. Another reason was that I knew that there were tons and tons of others who were flipping cars all across the U.S. and, as it turns out, all across the world. Flipping houses was all the rage, which I had also some experience with, but it was extremely popular subject on YouTube and in podcasts and TV shows. But I found that there was very little information in the podcast universe, or the podcastiverse about flipping cars. The podosphere, that's what I'm going to call it. And cars can be done with much less capital, and the return on investment is generally just as strong, and there's generally a much quicker turnaround time. So over the course of the past 2.5 years, Flipping Genius has grown into the top podcast about car flipping in the podosphere, or whatever you call podcasting world. Today, Flipping Genius is heard in every state in the United States, as well as in about 65 other countries around the globe. In addition to being broadcast on all the top podcasting channels, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podcast Addict, and others, we also have a fast-growing YouTube channel, Flipping Genius YouTube channel, and over 20 Facebook groups dedicated to buying and selling vehicles in specific areas all across the United States. Plus our car flipping forum. If you're not a member yet, please join. It's free to join. That has over 650 members and is growing fast. And these folks are solely dedicated to learning the car flipping business and sharing information with each other that they obtain and that they seek with each other. Our Facebook groups account for well over 33,000 members, and the podcast audience each week, well, it would fill up a typical movie theater 4 or 5 times. And for such a targeted audience, such a niche audience, Flipping Genius has begun to reach our targets, and it's starting to generate revenue opportunities, and that frankly is part of my goal since inception. And I'm excited about it. I want to thank all the listeners who come back and find value in the broadcast, because that's where that growth comes from. Today I want to talk to you about why, when, and how. The why, when, and how of podcasting. Now, I'm going to share how I do it and why I do it that way. And naturally, it is a subject that I'm still learning, but so is car flipping. Believe me, even though the name of my podcast is Flipping Genius, I am anything but a genius. Anybody who listens to the podcast regularly knows that. That's my assessment, is I'm far from a genius. And I think that the willingness I have to continue learning, uh, but not allowing that lack of knowledge to stop me from getting started, may be the greatest asset that I bring to the table, not only in the Flipping Genius podcast, but also in the car flipping world and any other businesses I'm involved in or been involved in the past. Now, I'm not going to go into great depth about my background, other than to say that I've run numerous businesses since I started my first venture when I was about 10 years old. One common trait of my enterprises is that once I get an idea, I generally have it up and running very quickly. I'm not somebody who needs to have all the answers before I think I know the right way. And that's served me well so far. Ed Fox was a guest on our podcast, and Ed says something. He says, failure is just a comma. It's not a period. I love that, and that drives me pretty strongly, that attitude. Before we get into the how-tos of podcasting, I want to talk to you about why you would want to invest your time and efforts into a podcast. Now, car flippers, you might think, Randy, why are you talking about this? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know why I'm talking to you, because I'm hoping it's going to reach you either about your car flipping business or about something else you're doing. But it's something, like I said, that I'm sharing with my local audience here. And I thought, man, I got to share this with you because it could benefit you. So that's allow me this moment to share this with you, and I hope it helps. And I know it's going to help somebody. And if it's not you, share it with somebody that it will help with. Okay. I got to get back to my notes. But the first reason why is to build your tribe. Now, if you haven't heard this term, you probably haven't been on the internet a lot, but the idea here is to separate yourself from the herd and establish your own voice. This can come in a lot of different ways. I believe that people buy you more than your product or your idea. You open the door to people to get to know you, and you get them to do it in their time frame, on their terms. A podcast is a brilliant thing to do this. We're going to talk more about that, about its usefulness and usability later on when I talk about money. You get a chance to educate your customers, share what you know, bring others to the mic that know more about you, bring them to the mic and now the camera to share what they know, and involve your audience. We'll talk about ways that we can do that too. You're going to attract new customers and new potential customers to whatever you're talking about, your main product, spin-off products, other merchandise, educational tools. They're going to hear about it here on your podcast, and they're going to trust you because you become a trusted voice. And we'll talk about how you do that. You're going to build your reputation. You become the go-to resource. Now, I'll be honest. I've said so many times on this microphone that I don't know what I'm doing, that I would think it might scare some people away. And maybe it has. Some of you may say, I don't know, can't learn anything from that guy. But obviously you can. Obviously, I know how to do some things right. And I also have contacts with others who know how to do some things right. And we bring it to the table in very real life, real answers kind of material. And we reach out to you in other ways to try to build those relationships. So I'd involve your audience, and along those lines, I want to invite anybody who has something to share on this mic or through our other tools, please reach out to me. You can always reach me at flippingquestions@gmail.com. You're going to build that reputation that you're a go-to source for answers. And it's going to support your other marketing, whatever that is. It's going to direct traffic to your website, to your blog, to your Facebook pages, your groups, your events, your memberships, subscription services, to your physical writings, your books, and your other training tools, depending on what you have to direct traffic to. Now, as you know, I have one cheap cat. Anybody who's ever listened to me knows. One of the guys asked me the other day, we were talking about our mechanics and how we take care of them, and I just mentioned that one of the things I like to do is bring them donuts or pizza every now and then. But when I bring them donuts, I usually go to the Walmart store and buy the day olds, and I pull the old stickers off, and I put my sticker on there that says Randy Buys Cars, and my podcast information and my business information, and I put that on there. It's in case they share the donuts with somebody in the lobby. I get the donuts for half price, and I turn it into an advertising tool. I am a cheap son of a gun. So how I do this and how you do it may be a different way, but I'm going to tell you how I do it. I'm going to share with you the economical way that I started and I grew the #1 car flipping podcast on the internet, Flipping Genius. I'm going to start at the beginning because I think that's a good place to start. And that's the domain name. If you don't have a domain name yet, you're probably pretty rare. But a domain name is like you see above my head if you're watching the video, or you'll hear me say now, www.flippinggenius.com, FLIPPINGENIUS.com. Only one G because I cheap, but I didn't buy the other one. That's a domain name, flippinggenius.com. I bought mine, as I bought all my domain names, on GoDaddy, and they cost anywhere from $1 for some domain names up to, you can spend a lot of money. Typical domain names like Flipping Genius cost me, I think, $15 or $20. They say now that it is worth over $2,000 if I were to willing to sell it, because of that we built the value of the name. And that's we're not going to sell it. This is not a pitch. I'm just saying that domain names are the place where they find you on the internet. Now, I own about 15 or 20 domain names for different business interests that I have, and I continue to look for opportunities for places that I want to be listed on the internet, not only for this business but for other businesses. Some of my main domain names related to the car business are middlemancars.com, middlemanenterprises.com, randybuyscars.com, uglyisok.com, and of course flippinggenius.com. I put this first because I do think it's important to have a domain to build around, because a lot of people are going to find you that way. So that's what I did first, and I used GoDaddy to secure that. You can use other tools, but that's what I used. Next, I want to talk about a hosting platform. Some of you may know or may not know. If you listen online, you hear me advertise for Anchor.com. That's ANCHOR.com. And they actually pay me a little bit of money. That's not a lot of money, but any money I can get, I'm happy to get. And not only do they pay me a little money, but they also allow me to host my podcast for free. And they allowed me to get started for free. And they have a format that is very easy to use. It's free. Have you heard that word? Free, F-R-E-E. And they actually, like I said, they paid me a little money. They paid me, I don't know, it's a little over $100. But it was money they paid me instead of me paying them. Plus now, Anchor has teamed up with Spotify, and I think it makes them the number one in podcasting, I believe. Apple's still really big, but and I think I have more listeners on Apple than I do on Spotify, but it's kind of neck and neck. and they offer both audio and video podcasting. And like I said, it's incredibly easy to use. So I highly recommend it. I've had other friends who have gone and used it, and I know it's worked well for them too. So it's not because I'm such a genius. It's it's easy to use. Um, I started with just my phone, and I still occasionally do an episode with just my phone. Today I use a separate podcasting mic that I believe my wife bought me for less than $50, and hopefully it improves the sound a little bit. And I had about 20 episodes under my belt before I even thought about improving the microphone. So don't let that hold you up. You can do it from your phone. You can absolutely do it from your phone, and you could actually do the video from your phone too. I use a separate video tool, but I don't know if it's any better than the one on the phone. The phone's fantastic. So don't let not having the right materials hold you up. It is not necessary, um, unless you're, unless you're not me. For me, it was not necessary. And another thing about Anchor is they provide statistical tracking on an ongoing basis. So I can tell you, or I could tell a potential sponsor, which you may be one, that we went to over 35,000 downloads last week. 89% of our audience in the United States, 89% of our audience is in the United States, I'm sorry, and 65% of them are males between the ages of 18 and 34, among other things. Pretty valuable information, especially if you're thinking about what you should be talking about, or you are talking to potential sponsors so they know that you reach the people that they want to reach. So that's how I host Anchor.fm, or Anchor.fm. I'm sorry, that's the proper. It's not Anchor.com. It's Anchor.fm, I believe. But check them out. Anchor. You can just Google Anchor and you'll find them. But they do a great job for me. I ought to know their address, but I recorded it one time. That's a beautiful thing. It's called Evergreen. You record it one time, you don't have to worry about it, and they keep paying you. I'm sorry, I'm so silly all the time. Next thing is, we got the domain name, and now we know where we're hosting the podcast. It's a good idea to have a website, and I am a big believer in websites. I know that they can sometimes be more effective than others, but website hosting and design, I do mine at Wix.com, but that's me, Wix.com. I know that in the audience I'll be talking to here in North Alabama this week, that there's some website professionals that are involved in that group, and there's probably some website professionals listening to me right now. I don't mean to step on your toes. I'm just saying this is how I do it. I've used Wix for a long time, and even though you know that I am extremely cheap, I've even gone so far lately as to go to their premium package or their paid package. I used to use only their free program, and I still use their free program in some of my businesses. But for Flipping Genius, we actually use the premium package because it allows me a few other things. And I know that's probably amazing that I'm ponying up for that paid version, but on my website you're going to find a lot of tools that I'll discuss in the final part of today's presentation, which is going to be on how to make your podcast make you an income. We can do that last because I know you guys love the money and got to keep you staying tuned. But there's one other thing I want to talk about before we get to that. Let's talk about the secret to how to build your audience, because you don't make any money unless you get an audience. And I am so thankful for you guys who are listening right now. I hope you're not getting mad at me because I'm not talking about car flipping, but believe me, this is part of my car flipping business. So I feel like I'm doing you a favor by talking about it. I hope some of you do too. You can always click it off and go to the next one. That's fine. That's cool. But I do hope that this is something that will help you or help somebody you know. The first thing about podcasting, the first key to building that audience, is something that I think you've seen me try to practice what I preach, and that's consistency. This is the most important thing. Most podcasts do not reach episode number 10. They just don't get there. And that doesn't even mean they're bad podcasts. I know some folks that did great podcasts, and I can think of one right now that I think only got to episode 7 or 8. I was on episode 7 or 8, and then they were all done. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. I didn't ruin it. But they interviewed me on the podcast. We did a great job. He did a great job, but then he just ran out of steam, and therefore probably is not going to get back to it. So consistency is key. But you can't just be consistent. You got to have value, and that value, I suppose, in different ways. In my podcast, it means bringing something to the table that you can use each week that will help you make more money. In a podcast, if you're Bill Burr and you're doing a podcast about comedy, you got to be funny. If you are doing a political contest, political commentary podcast, you've got to have information, and you've got to be able to share it in a way that is informative or entertaining or whatever. You've got to bring value to the table, and that is key. And then don't be afraid to share the spotlight. Invite guests who add value, and they're going to tell other people about you, because it's kind of like mom's going to watch the show because I was on it. And be a guest on other people's podcasts when they ask you if there's a correlation there. Don't just be a podcast guest or have guests just because they're available. I had an invitation. I have lots of invitations that just don't really fit. And then I see people that I could bring on the podcast, but I don't think that they've got a message to share that will be of value to you. So you'll hopefully, anytime I've had a guest on the Flipping Genius, it's been somebody that brings value to all or most of my audience. So that's a big way to build, because if you're a guest on somebody else's podcast and you tell your story and you bring value to their podcast, their audience is going to want to listen to you. Great way to transfer that information and transfer the wealth of that loyalty to you. So that's a big one. And then the next one is simply, like I said at the beginning, be everywhere. It's easy to do, but some people just don't do it. I mean, what I mean by that is, if you're a podcaster, you want to be on all the different formats. It's generally free to be there. So just make sure that once you're in, if you use Anchor like I do, or if you use anybody, there's tools there to allow you to share your podcast in different formats, like on Spotify and Apple. It's pretty straightforward and easy to do. It just take you maybe 15 minutes, 30 minutes to have it all set up. Make sure you do that. And go back from time to time and see if there's other opportunities. I know I just added one not long ago. And oh, by the way, if you listen to podcasts someplace and you haven't found Flipping Genius, please let me know so I can make sure that we're there. So I'm, like I said, practicing what I preach. And the last thing along these lines, before we get into, making money, and I think this is a big one: be you. Just be you. I got in trouble it's just a month or so ago. I decided to start doing some of these short video clips, and I'm not going to remember what it's called, TikTok and the other one that's that's on Facebook, and see I'm being me right now by not remembering. Reels is what it's called. I started doing those, and I was just having fun, and I was telling jokes, and I decided to tell the joke and do it in a Southern accent. And it wasn't long before somebody said, "Why don't you just be Randy?" Because and I started doing it. I thought it was funnier with a Southern accent, but I don't speak in a Southern accent, and I think my son said, "It sounds like you're trying to make fun of people with a Southern accent," which I live in Alabama. That'd be pretty stupid. And my wife, I think, said, "Just be you, and that made it a lot easier. I didn't have to figure out what role I was playing whenever I did a reel. And when you're telling a joke, you got to concentrate on being funny. You can't concentrate on being a different person too. At least I can't. So be you. Just be you. You don't have to. You won't have to. Recreate that persona every time that you flip on that mic, and that's no fun. So just be you. People are gonna buy because of you. They're gonna like you. Not everybody, but your tribe will. Your tribe will like you, and that's what we're talking about. Now, how do you create revenue from a podcast? This is $1 million question, right? And I don't have a million answers, but I got a bunch of answers because there's a bunch of ways to create revenue. And when we come back, I'm going to share them all with you. Just take a 30-second break. Hey, thanks for listening. And I want you to consider becoming a Flipping Team member. And when you do, we will share with you a startup kit that is valued at $250 or more. And each month, you'll get our Flipping Team Member Success Pack, which is also designed to help you make more money. Each and every month, you'll get more bonus material and other information because you're a Flipping Team member. Go to flippinggenius.com and click on the Flipping Team Member button to learn more. Now, how do you create revenue from a podcast? The first one we'll talk about is advertising. A lot of people think it's all about advertising, but you're going to find out if you'll just listen to the end. It's not all about advertising, because when you only have 14 people who've ever heard your podcast, you don't make any money. And I know that may sound insane, but I think my first episode, we had 14 people listen to it, initially. There's been thousands of people who have listened to it since then, but we'll talk about how that works later. But advertising, once your podcast gets a significant following, it'll be automatic. Once you get a built-in following of subscribers who listen to every episode, you'll get paid. But that's going to take a long, long time. And some of us will never get there because we have a very niche, very targeted audience. And so that's one way that you can get paid, but it's not the main way for most of us. You can look for willing advertisers who want exposure. And like I mentioned, Anchor actually pays me a little bit of money to advertise. I'm happy to do it because, like I said, it's who I use, and I think highly of them and the tool that they give us. Anchor also occasionally finds somebody that wants to advertise with me. Now that we've been around a little bit, every now and then somebody will reach out to us to advertise, and there are actually some services online that can find advertisers for you, but you may not want to use them. I don't want to fill up my my airwaves with ads, because you don't want to listen to a bunch of ads. But I'll throw in one or two because cat's got to get paid, right? And I try to stick to nothing more than 30 seconds or 1 minute ads, and that doesn't seem to bother anybody. But those of you who have listened from the get-go know that I also had advertisers right at the beginning. Before we get to episode number 10, we were generating several $100s per episode. But we were doing that because we looked for advertisers who I pitched to, that were looking for a favorable marketing situation. And in my case, you've heard me, if you've listened to the podcast before, you've heard me talk about barter. And back then, if you recall, we had a barter company that was advertising with us on every episode. And they that barter company had a ad rebate program that allowed the advertiser to actually get a rebate of a certain portion of their income. And anyway, that little formula allowed us to attract some advertisers that created a pretty good revenue stream early on. But frankly, I found that I felt like I was putting too much advertisement inside of the story, and I didn't want to hamper you with that. So we've backed off on that. I could have that type of formula running all of the time, but I think it's more important that we do that value added. Another way is groups. You've heard me talk about our groups. We've got the car flipping groups. If you go to Facebook groups and just search Flipping Genius, you'll find a couple dozen groups there. One of them will be the blue and white group, which is the Flipping Genius car flipping forum that you want to join. If you're a car flipper, you want to join that because it's going to be a place for you to learn how to make money and share ideas with others. You're going to find the rest of them are mostly red and white. There's one in Texas that is orange and white. Guess why? And where people can buy and sell cars under the Flipping Genius umbrella. It creates opportunities for you to create paid events online or in person. I haven't done a lot of this yet. We're building to it. It creates opportunities for you to sell your product or sell your service in a consistent group that others will help you grow. This can be applicable to you in a different way than it is to me, but I'm just giving a general idea. It also allows you to secure contact information, including email addresses, when somebody joins, if they choose to share that with you. And that leads me to the next tool that you can use for revenue generation, and that's email marketing. It depends on what your podcast is about. If your podcast is about a book that you've written, that can be directly related. If your podcast is about car flipping, if your podcast is about custom Corvettes, if your podcast is about, fill in the blank, the email marketing can be beneficial to you. Your podcast may be a charitable organization, a nonprofit, and the email marketing that you do could be fundraising. Still the same thing. Like I told you, this episode, I'm hoping it'll help you, and hoping you'll share it with others that it will help. Maybe they have nothing to do with car flipping. Our email marketing database is up over 2,500 names that we've generated primarily through our groups and other requests from our website where people have asked to join our email mailing list. Frankly, I haven't started marketing from that, soliciting yet. I'm not saying I won't, but I'm not going to do it until I find a tool that I think will bring benefit and value to my audience. Product sales. This can vary widely depending on what you're podcasting about. You could have merchandise sales, you could have coaching, you could have training. These are great ways to generate revenue from your podcast. Partnership opportunities. This is something that most people probably would not see. It's something that maybe I wouldn't have seen had I not done it before in the version of a book that I wrote back a couple decades ago. I wrote a book about real estate that was quite popular and created a nice stream of revenue just from the book itself. But the book created partnerships for me in the real estate business from all across the country that created a substantial amount of income that far outweighed the income from the directly from the book. So you have to kind of think outside the box, think outside the podcast. There can be partnership opportunities that are created because people know you. They get to know you. You know me because this is real. This is me on this podcast. So if you've listened to 132 episodes of Randy Lee, you know me as well as probably most people here in town. And heck, you could pick up the phone and call me, and you can see me everywhere. So it's pretty straightforward, pretty transparent. So the partnership opportunities can come to you because of that. Memberships are another way. You've heard us talk about on the car flipping forum. It is free to join, but we're developing paid memberships as well. And you can go to flippinggenius.com and you can become a flipping partner or a flipping team member or a flipping champion. And these are membership levels that allow us to interact with you directly with your business. And they're paid membership levels that allow us to generate revenue directly from you. And like anything I do, if you give me $1, I want to make sure you make 10. And that's what we do there. If you become a flipping partner and agree to give us $100 a month, I want to make sure that you're making $500 to $1,000 more than you would have had you not met us. But that's just a way that we can generate revenue from the podcast. Subscriptions. This is something new that you'll find us talking about subscriptions on our website, but also on YouTube. And if you're not, if you haven't subscribed yet to our YouTube channel, please do it today. Once a YouTuber gets to 1,000 subscribers, YouTube pays you straight up. It's not a ton of money, but the money starts to come to you once you get 1,000 subscribers. So please, please, please subscribe to the Flipping Genius YouTube channel. You can go to flippinggenius.com. As soon as you get there, you'll see a YouTube symbol. Click on it, subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, and it's a big help to us. Is that begging you enough? But that's how that works. Subscriptions on YouTube and other places can actually generate revenue. Sponsorships, and thank you so much to you who have been straight up sponsors. You've probably heard of Patreon, and when you click on our subscription programs, it takes you to Patreon. And we've had folks who have just donated some money to us that, hey, Randy, we appreciate what you're doing. It hasn't been a hoard of money, but every penny that I got, I appreciate it so much. I really do. That's another thing. And especially if you're doing some kind of a fundraiser or a not-for-profit, Patreon works for that, or it works for businesses. Affiliate marketing. This is a huge one, and it can get huger and huger, and we're trying to grow this. Our resources page on flippinggenius.com, it helps you save money, and it also helps us make money. If you buy tires, tools, training, parts, business services, books, anything else that you find on our resources page, and you buy it directly from there, a small portion of it, very, very small, comes to Flipping Genius, and that can add up. The bigger that number, the bigger your number. So affiliate marketing, and you can do that through Amazon, and there are other resources too. Just you can search affiliate marketing to learn more about that. Or feel free to send me questions about any of these things. Just send them to flippingquestions@gmail.com. If you've got questions about this stuff, I'll be happy to answer to the extent that I can, or direct you to where I found it. That's a lot of times I'm going to give you an answer to where I went to find that. And you're going to find links as you do receive emails from us, as you do see posts. You'll find more and more links to products and services that are affiliates of ours, where they pay us a little bit of money. Like you've heard me talk about the 3-hour car flip with Jeremy Fisher. Jeremy's kind enough to give us a couple bucks from that. You've heard a couple weeks ago posted on, or last week I think, on our car flipping forum, some links to some pretty good deals on floor mats and hubcaps, and both of those, even though the deals were great, I'll still get a nickel or two when you buy them. So that's an example of a link that actually directs the traffic, so that they know that I directed you to it, and they pay me a little commission. That is affiliate marketing, or affiliate commissions. And the last thing about all this, as far as revenue, is that it's evergreen. Evergreen. I love that term, because we think green, we think of money. At least here in the States, I think of green as money. It's probably different colors other places, but what that means is once you are consistent, once you are adding value, and you are producing this podcasts and YouTube videos and other content that go along with your website and your podcast. Um, that that content is there for a long time. I'd say forever, but it's going to be on there for a long time. And if you think about that, that's why sometimes you'll hear me refer to the date that I'm recording it, because I know that 5 years from now the situation may be different, especially in the economy, in these different areas. So it's important that I address that, because I know 10 years from now electric vehicles may be dominating the world, and I want you to know that I recorded this in 2022. Hopefully there's going to be some value in every episode that is still worthwhile in 2032, if nothing else, just because I'm a humorous fool sometimes. But hopefully there's some value that you'll want to go back and listen. And if that's the case, there's some tremendous value. I mean, I was just listening to watching a video last night, Dave Chappelle video, and I thought it was hilarious. And I know it was from way back. Dave was really skinny in it. And that's an evergreen version. Dave did that video, and it's still paying off for him. The jokes are still paying off for him, and that's a beautiful thing about this type of work. Whereas when you and I flip a car, we got to move to the next one. We may have some other value from it. We've talked about that before. If we do a good job and get repeat business, that happens to me a lot. But as far as that car, we're not going to get paid for that car again. But when you do a recording, like even the one I'm doing right now, it can be evergreen. And that's an exciting thing. You think about the value of your time. And another thing, and I want to give credit to my buddy Ed Fox up in Nashville again, Ed Fox, FOX, Ed talked about all this work that we do. He and I, as a podcaster also, it can turn into a book. You can take the audio version of what you've done and turn some of it into a book, or all of it into a book, or a digital training program. Certainly, many of the episodes of Flipping Genius are of value and could be used in a digital training program at some point. And this may be something you may see not long from now. But those are the ways. Those are the ways, and that is the punchline. And that, how do we make money from what we do? I mean, everybody wants to make money. That's how we do it. I hope this has helped you. If you haven't ever thought about doing a podcast, I hope you say, oh, okay, that's something I want to do. Or maybe you are thinking about doing a podcast, or maybe you're thinking, Randy, why are you talking to me about this? But I hope, if you've listened all the way till now, I hope I made you some money somehow. If nothing else, I hope you can tell your brother-in-law, your sister-in-law, your next door neighbor, or who, somebody from church or wherever, who you think this will benefit. Tell them to listen to this episode 132. It's about podcasting, and I think it's value that can help a lot of people, and I wanted to make sure that I shared it with you. Hey, if you've got any questions, please reach out to me at flippingquestions@gmail.com. Be sure to join the Car Flipping Forum, and please exchange information. Be active there. It's a great place to share what you know and learn what other people know. And when you do that, it will turn a profit for you. I know it will. Hey, let's work together. Let's make some money. Let's all become flipping geniuses.